Fire rained from the skies as Trion warships circled above Wax's outer districts, their cannons unleashing torrents of plasma that shattered crystalline towers and sent shockwaves through the ground. The air smelled of scorched stone and molten metal as debris rained down like ash. Cries of panic echoed through the streets, drowned out by the thunderous roar of battle. Alpha moved through the chaos with swift precision, his energy blades flaring to life in each hand. Every slash of violet light cut through Trion soldiers clad in obsidian armor, their monstrous frames looming over the slender Wax defenders. Despite their fragility, the Wax fought with desperate determination, channeling energy into force fields and pulse blasts that lit up the night like flashes of lightning. Yet, the Trion's superior strength and sheer numbers pushed them back with each clash. "Fall back to Sector 3. Alpha's voice boomed through the comms, steady despite the chaos around him. "Protect the evacuation routes at all costs." A squad of Wax soldiers sprinted past him, guiding civilians toward the underground transport tunnels beneath the city. Alpha pivoted, blocking a Trion warrior's energy lance with crossed blades. Sparks flew as the weapons collided, the force of impact rattling Alpha's bones. With a swift kick to the warrior's chest, he broke free, slashing upward and severing the Trion's weapon arm in a burst of molten metal. "Alpha, we need you at the southern barricade." Lyra's voice cut through the noise, urgent and clear. "They've breached the outer defenses. Our lines are collapsing." Alpha's heart clenched, but he pushed aside his fear. "Hold your position. I'm on my way." He leapt onto a crumbling platform, racing across shattered rooftops as explosions rocked the city below. Flashes of green and crimson energy streaked through the air, lighting up the night like a storm of fire. As he approached the southern sector, his breath caught in his throat. The defensive barricades, once reinforced with shimmering energy shields, now lay in ruins. Trion shock troopers poured through the breach, their heavy footsteps shaking the earth. Wax defenders scrambled to hold them back, but their energy cannons flickered and sputtered, drained from hours of continuous fire. In the center of the battlefield, Lyra stood with arms raised, a radiant sphere of golden energy surrounding her like a protective cocoon. Waves of light burst from her hands, halting the advancing Trions in their tracks, but Alpha could see the strain etched on her face. "Lyra," he shouted as he landed beside her, slashing through an approaching warrior. "Fall back before they overwhelm us. I can hold them, just a little longer." Lyra's voice trembled with exertion. Her eyes burned with white-hot energy as another surge of power erupted from her palms, throwing several Trions backward. But her knees buckled, and Alpha caught her before she could fall. "Enough," he whispered, holding her close. "We can't lose you." Before Lyra could respond, a deafening explosion split the air. A Trion artillery blast struck the ground nearby, sending a shockwave that hurled Alpha and Lyra into the air. Pain shot through Alpha's side as he hit the ground hard, shielding Lyra with his body as debris rained down around them. Smoke and dust choked the air as Alpha forced himself to his feet, dragging Lyra upright. Through the haze, he saw Trion war machines, towering bipedal constructs armed with plasma cannons, marching through the breach, their weapons glowing with lethal energy. Alpha clenched his fists, his energy blades flaring back to life. "All units, fall back to the underground tunnels. Seal the entrances once everyone's inside, no exceptions." But a nearby officer protested. "That's an order." Alpha's eyes blazed with determination. "We can't win this fight here. Save as many as you can and regroup in the lower districts." As the remaining defenders retreated, Alpha and Lyra stood their ground, buying precious seconds for their people to escape. Together, they cut through wave after wave of Trion warriors, their energy blades and blasts weaving patterns of light against the night sky. But even they could not hold forever. When the last transport descended into the tunnels, Alpha grabbed Lyra's hand and sprinted toward the nearest entrance. Plasma bolts exploded around them as the war machines fired relentlessly, molten stone and metal flying through the air. Alpha dove into the tunnel just as the entrance collapsed behind them, sealing them in darkness. Breathless and battered, Alpha pulled Lyra close, feeling the rapid beat of her heart against his chest. In the silence that followed, the distant echoes of battle faded into the depths above. "The outer city is lost," he murmured, his voice heavy with sorrow. Lyra clung to him, her voice barely a whisper. "But we're still alive. And as long as we stand together, we won't let them take everything." Alpha closed his eyes, holding her tighter as the weight of the war pressed down upon his shoulders. The battle had only just begun, and the hardest choices still lay ahead. The air inside the underground command chamber hummed with tension. Crystalline walls pulsed faintly with azure light, casting long shadows across the gathered wax leaders. Holographic displays flickered overhead, mapping the destruction of the outer city, red-marked zones spreading like wounds across the digital landscape. The distant rumble of explosions above ground echoed through the stone, a constant reminder that the Trions had not ceased their assault. Alpha stood at the center of the room, his face etched with exhaustion and determination. Beside him, Lyra leaned lightly against a crystalline console, her pale skin still faintly aglow with residual energy. Their eyes met briefly, a silent exchange of strength before Alpha addressed the council. "We've lost the outer districts, but our people are safe below ground. The lower tunnels are secure, and defenses are holding for now." His voice carried through the chamber, steady despite the weight of their situation. "But we cannot afford another attack of the scale. Vorak knows our defenses are weakening. He won't stop until wax is ashes." As if summoned by Alpha's words, an alert sounded, a deep, resonant chime that silenced all conversation. The holographic displays shifted to show a new transmission, a Trion warship, its obsidian hull gleaming against the void of space. And then, Vorak. The Trion commander's image filled the central display, his crimson eyes burning with malice beneath the jagged contours of his armored helmet. Deep scars marred the dark blue skin of his face, evidence of wounds sustained in previous battles, wounds the wax had inflicted. His twisted grin revealed rows of sharp teeth as he leaned closer to the screen, as though he could see directly into the command chamber. "People of Wax," Vorak's voice rumbled like distant thunder, amplified through the chamber's speakers. "Your walls crumble. Your cities burn. Soon, your world will fall beneath the might of the Trion Dominion." Alpha stepped forward, his shoulders squared. "Your war is built on fear, Vorak. But we are not afraid of you." Vorak's grin widened. "Brave words, but bravery will not save you. I offer you a choice, Alpha. Surrender Lyra, the key to the power hidden within your race, and I will spare the rest of your people. Refuse, and I will unleash our full arsenal upon your world. Not even your deepest tunnels will save you from what comes next." Silence gripped the room as Vorak's words settled over the council like a heavy shroud. Alpha's fists clenched at his sides, his mind racing through possibilities. Around him, murmurs of fear and doubt rose from the gathered leaders. Lyra stepped forward before Alpha could speak. "I am not yours to take, Vorak. And I will never help you unlock the power you seek." Vorak's eyes flashed with fury. "Then you condemn your world to destruction." Without waiting for a reply, the transmission cut off, leaving only static in its wake. The holographic displays flickered back to the battlefield map, but the room remained deathly silent. Alpha turned to the council, his gaze sweeping across their worried faces. "We cannot, will not, surrender Lyra. She is the heart of our people and our greatest hope." Vorak's threat only proves how desperate he's become. "But what if he speaks the truth?" An elder counselor interjected, her voice strained with fear. "What if Lyra's power could save us all, if we use it before the Trions can?" Lyra's eyes hardened. "I won't become a weapon. My abilities are meant to protect life, not destroy it. There must be another way." The room erupted into heated debate, some arguing to stand their ground, others fearing that defiance would doom them all. Alpha's pulse pounded in his ears as their voices clashed, but his gaze never wavered from Lyra's. "I won't let them take you." The unspoken vow echoed through his mind as their eyes met, a silent promise that no force in the universe could break. Finally, Alpha raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent. "Vorak has given us an ultimatum, but we still have a choice. We will strengthen our defenses, prepare for the next attack, and find a way to strike back. Surrender is not an option. And as long as we stand together, Wax will not fall. The council members exchanged uncertain glances, but Alpha's unwavering resolve seemed to steal their hearts. One by one, they nodded in agreement. As the meeting adjourned, Alpha stepped beside Lyra, lowering his voice so only she could hear. We'll find a way to stop him. I swear it. Lyra rested her hand over his, her touch warm against his skin. Together, she whispered. Alpha held her gaze for a moment longer before turning to face the next challenge that awaited them, knowing that Vorek's ultimatum was only the beginning of what was to come. In the labyrinthine depths beneath Wax's shattered surface, the heart of the resistance pulsed with defiance. The air hummed with the energy of hastily assembled devices, as scientists and engineers toiled day and night to craft weapons capable of countering Trion technology. Sparks illuminated the cavern walls, reflecting off sleek prototypes of upgraded energy cannons and portable shields designed for guerrilla warfare. Alpha moved among the resistance fighters, his presence both a source of strength and a reminder of the stakes. His voice echoed through the underground chambers as he instructed squads on sabotage tactics, coordinated strikes against supply convoys, strategic blackouts to disrupt Trion communications, and swift raids targeting their armored transports. Direct confrontation was suicide, though Wax had learned that hard lesson. Now, they would strike from the shadows. Lyra, her energy still volatile, assisted from the command center, using her visions to predict Trion movements. Yet each surge of power left her breathless, her mind teetering on the brink of chaos. Alpha watched her with growing concern, torn between the need for her abilities and the fear of what they might cost her. On the battlefield, the Wax's hit-and-run tactics sowed confusion among the Trion forces. Strike teams emerged from hidden tunnels, blasting apart supply transports before vanishing into the depths. Explosions echoed through the night as sabotage missions ignited fuel depots, leaving towering plumes of fire against the star-streaked sky. The Resistance's success bought precious time, but Alpha knew it was only a matter of time before the Trions adapted. In the aftermath of a daring raid that crippled a Trion weapons cache, Alpha stood atop a rocky outcrop, gazing at the distant fires still burning on the horizon. The air smelled of scorched metal and ozone, a reminder of both victory and the price paid. As Lyra approached, her luminous eyes reflecting the distant flames, Alpha's hand found hers. They're learning our patterns, he said, voice low. We need to push harder before they close the gaps. We will, Lyra replied, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into her features. But Alpha, my visions, they're changing. There's something coming. Something worse. Her words hung between them, heavy with unspoken fear. Yet as their hands intertwined, the silent promise of standing together, no matter what darkness approached, burned brighter than any flame. In the labyrinthine depths beneath Wax's shattered surface, the heart of the resistance pulsed with defiance. The air hummed with the energy of hastily assembled devices, as scientists and engineers toiled day and night to craft weapons capable of countering Trion technology. Sparks illuminated the cavern walls, reflecting off sleek prototypes of upgraded energy cannons and portable shields designed for guerrilla warfare. Alpha moved among the resistance fighters, his presence both a source of strength and a reminder of the stakes. His voice echoed through the underground chambers as he instructed squads on sabotage tactics, coordinated strikes against supply convoys, strategic blackouts to disrupt Trion communications, and swift raids targeting their armored transports. Direct confrontation was suicide, though Wax had learned that hard lesson. Now, they would strike from the shadows. Lyra, her energy still volatile, assisted from the command center, using her visions to predict Trion movements. Yet each surge of power left her breathless, her mind teetering on the brink of chaos. Alpha watched her with growing concern, torn between the need for her abilities and the fear of what they might cost her. On the battlefield, the Wax's hit-and-run tactics sowed confusion among the Trion forces. Strike teams emerged from hidden tunnels, blasting apart supply transports before vanishing into the depths. Explosions echoed through the night as sabotage missions ignited fuel depots, leaving towering plumes of fire against the star-streaked sky. The Resistance's success bought precious time, but Alpha knew it was only a matter of time before the Trions adapted. In the aftermath of a daring raid that crippled a Trion weapons cache, Alpha stood atop a rocky outcrop, gazing at the distant fires still burning on the horizon. The air smelled of scorched metal and ozone, a reminder of both victory and the price paid. As Lyra approached, her luminous eyes reflecting the distant flames, Alpha's hand found hers. "They're learning our patterns," he said, voice low. "We need to push harder before they close the gaps." "We will," Lyra replied, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into her features. "But Alpha, my visions, they're changing. There's something coming. Something worse." Her words hung between them, heavy with unspoken fear. Yet as their hands intertwined, the silent promise of standing together, no matter what darkness approached, burned brighter than any flame. Lyra sat alone within the crystalline meditation chamber deep beneath the heart of Waxa's underground city. The walls pulsed faintly with energy, mirroring the rhythm of her own erratic heartbeat. Sweat clung to her brow as her breath came in shallow gasps. Every time she closed her eyes, the visions returned, fragments of ancient power tied to both the Trions and her own people. Flashes of a great void surrounded her mind's eye, swirling shadows and blinding light locked in an eternal struggle. Within the chaos, she glimpsed towering figures made of pure energy, their forms flickering between humanoid and something far beyond comprehension. Their whispers echoed through her consciousness, each word laced with a power that sent shivers down her spine. "You are the key. Awaken, before all is lost." The strain of these visions left her trembling, yet she could not ignore the truth they hinted at within her. A force beyond anything the Wax had ever known was stirring. But harnessing that power came at a cost. Her previous encounter with the Nexus Core had shown her the dangers of tapping into such raw energy. It had taken weeks to regain control of her mind, and even now, the echoes of that chaotic power lingered beneath her skin. Footsteps approached, and she opened her eyes as Alpha entered the chamber. Concern shadowed his eyes as he knelt beside her, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Another vision?" he asked softly. Lyra nodded, her voice trembling with fear and determination. "They're getting stronger, clearer. I can feel something ancient within me, Alpha. Something connected to both the Trions and our people. If I can harness it, maybe." "No," Alpha interrupted, his voice firm but gentle. "Not at the cost of losing yourself." She met his gaze, her golden eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "If I don't, we may all be lost. I have to try." Alpha's heart ached as he held her close. He could feel the energy radiating from her body, a warmth that pulsed with both life and danger. "Then I'll stand by your side. But promise me you won't push too far. I can't lose you, Lyra." She leaned into his embrace, drawing strength from his presence. But even as she clung to him, a part of her feared that the path ahead would demand sacrifices neither of them could escape. The underground war room buzzed with hushed conversations as Alpha stood at the center, his gaze fixed on the holographic map projecting Trion troop movements. The room's crystalline walls shimmered with faint energy pulses, amplifying the tension in the air. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes glowing faintly as she clutched the edge of the console, her mind still haunted by visions of the ancient power. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, cloaked individual whose presence seemed to bend the air around them. Their hood fell back, revealing sharp features carved by time and battle. Alpha's breath hitched. "Kiran," Alpha whispered, memories of a fractured past flashing through his mind. "It's been a long time, Alpha." Kiran's voice was rough but steady, his gaze unreadable. "I've come with information that could change the course of this war. But whether you trust me, that's your choice." Lyra stepped forward. "Why now? Where were you when Wax burned?" Kiran's expression darkened. "Surviving. Gathering intelligence. I've infiltrated the Trion command network and discovered a critical weakness. Vorax forces rely on a central energy nexus that amplifies their weapons and shields. If we destroy it, their entire assault will collapse. Alpha's mind raced. Where is it? Deep within their flagship, anchored near the planet's atmosphere. The security is impenetrable. But I can get you inside. Silence thickened the air as Alpha studied Kieran's eyes, searching for any trace of deception. Memories of their last encounter, betrayal and blood clawed at his thoughts. Lyra sensed his hesitation. Alpha, if he's telling the truth, this could save us all. Kieran stepped closer, lowering his voice. You don't have time for doubt. Vorax's ultimate weapon is nearly ready. Trust me, or watch everything you've built fall to ash. Alpha clenched his fists. Betrayal or salvation, only time would reveal the truth. Prepare a strike team, Alpha ordered, his voice firm. We're going in. As the Wax prepared their counterstrike, a shadow moved within their ranks. Deep within the heart of the underground city, energy generators pulsed with a steady hum, vital to sustaining the protective shields that kept the Trions at bay. But now, that hum faltered. System failure in Sector 3, a technician called out, panic tightening her voice. Screens flickered as defense grids collapsed in rapid succession. Alpha sprinted into the control room, his energy blade igniting as he scanned the chaos. Report. Someone tampered with the shield core, Lyra answered, her eyes blazing with restrained power. The sabotage was deliberate. Alpha's chest tightened. A traitor, someone they trusted, had risked their entire civilization. A nearby console exploded, showering sparks as enemy signals appeared on their scanners. Trion scouts had picked up the energy fluctuations. We've been exposed, shouted a soldier. The Trions are closing in. No! Alpha slammed his fist against the console. We need to isolate the sabotage point. Now! Lyra's energy flared, stabilizing the generators momentarily. Sweat lined her brow, but she stood firm. I can hold this. Find who did this. Alpha stormed through the tunnels with a squad of elite warriors, tension coiling in his chest. Every corridor echoed with whispers of doubt. Anyone could be the traitor. Lights flickered overhead as he approached the secured tech bay. Inside, he found the saboteur, a Wax scientist named Thaler, one of those entrusted with the Nexus Core's research. Thaler's hands glowed faintly with unstable energy as he attempted to override the security locks. Step away from the controls. Alpha barked. Thaler spun around, eyes wild with desperation. You don't understand. We can't win this war. The Trions offered a way to save Wax if we surrender Lyra. I had to. You betrayed everyone. Alpha's energy blade hissed to life, its azure glow casting harsh shadows. How many lives did you trade for your cowardice? I did it to save us. Thaler cried. They promised. Alpha advanced. The Trions don't make promises. They destroy. And you just opened the door for them. With a swift motion, Alpha incapacitated Thaler and summoned guards to detain him. Over the comms, Lyra's voice cut through the tension. Alpha, they've found our outer defenses. I can hold the core, but we need to prepare, now. Alpha exhaled sharply, rage and sorrow intertwining in his chest. Trust had been broken, and their sanctuary compromised. As alarms blared, signaling the Trion's advance, Alpha returned to Lyra's side. Together, they braced for the next onslaught, knowing the battle would now be fought on blood-soaked ground and within their own hearts. The air trembled with the echoes of distant explosions, each blast sending shockwaves through the crystalline walls of the Wax's central underground city. Crimson emergency lights flickered along the cavern ceilings as alarms blared, their urgent wails drowned by the roar of collapsing tunnels. Dust and debris rained from above, coating the once pristine streets of the subterranean metropolis in a haze of chaos. Alpha sprinted through the main corridor, energy blade ignited in his hand, its azure glow slicing through the suffocating darkness. Beside him, Lyra kept pace, her golden eyes blazing with determination as energy flickered across her fingertips. The clash of weapons and the guttural roars of Trion soldiers echoed from all directions, their armored forms pushing through the city's defensive lines. They've breached the outer perimeter, shouted Kieran through Alpha's comlink. Sector C is falling. We need reinforcements now. Hold the line as long as you can, Alpha replied, voice steady despite the chaos. Lyra and I are moving to intercept the main assault force. We won't let them reach the Nexus core. The tunnels trembled beneath their feet as another explosion rocked the city, shattering crystalline windows and sending shards cascading onto the streets below. Plasma fire streaked through the air as Wax defenders clashed with Trion shock troopers in brutal close-quarters combat. The narrow corridors favored the Wax's agility, but the Trion's sheer strength and firepower tore through defenses with relentless force. Alpha led the charge into the heart of the battle, weaving through rubble-strewn streets as Trion soldiers emerged from the smoke. Energy blades clashed against plasma gauntlets, sparks flying with each collision. Alpha's movements were swift and precise, his blade carving through Trion armor with practiced efficiency. Lyra moved beside him, her energy manipulation weaving golden barriers that deflected plasma shots while unleashing focused blasts that sent enemies reeling. Alpha, on your right, Lyra shouted. Alpha spun just as a Trion warrior lunged from the shadows, jagged blade poised to strike. He parried the blow and countered with a swift slash that severed the Trion's weapon arm, then drove his blade through its chest. The soldier collapsed with a guttural snarl, but more pressed forward to take its place. They're swarming the central access tunnel, Lyra warned as she raised a hand, creating a barrier of shimmering energy that halted an incoming barrage of plasma fire. The force of the impact sent cracks spiderwebbing through the barrier, and Lyra winced as she struggled to maintain it. Alpha pressed his comlink. Kieran, deploy the heavy cannons at the main tunnel entrance. We need to slow their advance before they reach the core chamber. Copy that. Cannons are firing now, hold tight. The ground shuddered as the Wax's energy cannons roared to life, their blasts illuminating the cavern with flashes of searing blue light. Explosions rocked the advancing Trion forces, tearing through their armored ranks and buying precious moments for the Wax defenders. But the Trions pressed onward with ruthless determination, their shock troops scaling walls and smashing through barricades as chaos engulfed the city. Alpha and Lyra fought their way toward the central plaza, where the main tunnel led directly to the Nexus core. The air crackled with energy as Lyra unleashed waves of golden light, scattering Trion soldiers like leaves in a storm. Alpha moved with lethal precision, his blade carving through armored foes with each calculated strike. Suddenly, a deafening explosion erupted from above, and a section of the cavern ceiling collapsed, blocking the tunnel behind them. Alpha shielded Lyra with his body as debris rained down, then scanned the rubble-strewn corridor. We're cut off from the others, he said grimly. Then we hold this line ourselves, Lyra replied, her voice firm despite the chaos. As more Trion soldiers poured into the plaza, Alpha and Lyra stood their ground, side by side. The fate of the core city and the entire Wax civilization depended on their ability to hold back the tide of destruction. Alpha's guerrilla unit moved through the dense crystal tunnels of the core city outskirts, their footsteps silent against the smooth stone. The distant echoes of battle faded as they advanced deeper into Trion-controlled territory. Lyra, her energy aura faintly shimmering, kept close to Alpha, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Ahead, Vorak's command post pulsed with faint red lights, guarded by Trion soldiers armed with plasma rifles. The air crackled with tension as Alpha signaled his team to take their positions. This is our only chance. Vorak holds the key to the Trion's final weapon, Alpha whispered through the comms. We move on my mark. The moment arrived like a lightning strike. Energy blades ignited as the Wax warriors charged forward. Lyra's focused blast shattered the defensive barriers, scattering Trion soldiers. Alpha moved with precision, cutting through the enemy ranks until he reached Vorak. The Trion commander roared in defiance, wielding a plasma axe that sparked with raw power. Their clash echoed through the cavern, Alpha's energy blade meeting Vorak's brutal strikes in a whirlwind of sparks and sound. You cannot stop us, Alpha. Vorak snarled, his crimson eyes blazing. The weapon is already prepared. Your world will burn. Fueled by determination, Alpha drove his blade through Vorak's defenses, disarming the Trion with a final, decisive strike. The Wax team subdued him swiftly, binding his limbs with energy restraints. Hours later, within the hidden chambers of the core city, Vorak sat bound, his gaze defiant despite his injuries. Alpha and Lyra stood before him, their faces hardened with resolve. "Tell us about the weapon," Alpha demanded. Vorak bared his teeth in a cruel smile. "It matters not. The Trion superweapon will be ready within days. One blast, and Wax will be nothing but ash and silence." Lyra's energy flared uncontrollably at his words, the air around her shimmering with heat and raw power. Alpha touched her hand, grounding her before she lost control. "Where is it?" Alpha pressed, his voice dangerously low. Vorak only laughed. "Even if I told you, you wouldn't stand a chance." The interrogation stretched into the night, tension rising as every second brought the Trions closer to annihilation. Finally, a single clue slipped from Vorak's lips, just enough to ignite a desperate plan. As dawn broke over the war-torn caverns, Alpha and Lyra stood atop the highest crystal spire, the weight of their world pressing down upon them. "We have no choice," Alpha said. "We must infiltrate the Trion flagship and destroy the weapon before it's too late." Lyra met his gaze, her eyes reflecting both fear and love. "We'll go together, Alpha. No matter what happens, we face this as one." Beneath their feet, the city prepared for its final stand as the future of Wax hung in the balance. Alpha and Lyra stood in the war-torn chamber of the core city, Vorak's ominous warning still echoing in their minds. The weight of his words settled over them. The Trion's ultimate weapon was nearly complete. The air around them crackled with tension as they faced the gravity of their next move. "We don't have time to wait," Alpha said, pacing the room with clenched fists. His mind raced through potential strategies, but each path led to devastating consequences. Lyra stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "Then we use my powers," she said. "It's the only way." "No," Alpha replied sharply, turning to face her. "We've discussed this. The energy is too unstable, it could kill you. I know the risk." Lyra's voice was calm but resolute. "But if I can amplify our defenses or disable their weapon, I have to try." Alpha's heart pounded in his chest. The thought of losing her was unbearable. Memories of their journey flashed through his mind, the battles they'd fought, the sacrifices they'd made, and the bond that had grown between them. But the fate of their entire civilization hung in the balance. "Then we do this together," Alpha said at last, his voice softening. "I won't let you face this alone." Lyra nodded, stepping closer until their foreheads touched, their breaths mingling in the silence. "No matter what happens, I choose this. I choose us." As the city trembled from distant explosions, Alpha and Lyra prepared for what might be their final mission. Gathering their gear and activating their energy armor, they moved through the underground corridors, passing soldiers and civilians whose eyes reflected both fear and hope. In a hidden chamber beneath the city, Lyra approached the Nexus core, a pulsating crystalline sphere that thrummed with immense energy. Placing her hands on its surface, she closed her eyes, feeling its power surge through her veins. Alpha stood beside her, ready to support her if the energy became too much. Sweat beaded on Lyra's forehead as she channeled the core's energy, her body trembling under the strain. Sparks of blue and violet light danced across her skin as her connection deepened, pushing her beyond the limits of any wax before her. Alpha reached out, gripping her shoulder tightly. "Focus, Lyra. Don't let it consume you." "I can do this," she whispered through gritted teeth. The energy swirled within her, amplifying her abilities beyond anything she had ever experienced. With a final surge of will, she released a pulse of energy that resonated through the city, reinforcing its shields and disrupting the Trion's assault. Collapsing to her knees, Lyra gasped for air. Alpha knelt beside her, pulling her into his arms. "You did it. The shields are holding." But their relief was short-lived. Vorak's warning still lingered. The superweapon was nearly ready, and this victory would only buy them limited time. "Now we go after their weapon," Alpha said. "We stop it before they can use it." Lyra met his gaze, determination burning in her eyes despite her exhaustion. Together, as the distant echoes of battle rumbled through the city, Alpha and Lyra steeled themselves for the mission that could save their world, or cost them everything. The air within the underground city pulsed with tension as Alpha stood atop the platform overlooking the council chamber. The distant echoes of artillery fire reverberated through the walls, a reminder of the war raging just beyond their sanctuary. The decision before him was one that could not be undone. Lyra stepped beside him, her gaze unwavering despite the weight of what they faced. "We know what we have to do. There's no turning back now." Alpha clenched his fists at his sides, knowing the risks. Vorek's interrogation had revealed that the Trion's superweapon, the core disruptor, would be operational within days. It would obliterate all life on Wax, leaving nothing but scorched earth. "There's no guarantee we'll make it out," Alpha said, his voice low. "Then we make sure the sacrifice means something," Lyra replied. She reached for his hand, and he clasped it tightly. "We've come too far to let fear stop us now." The mission was clear: infiltrate the Trion flagship, disable the core disruptor, and escape, if possible. Alpha activated his comm, addressing the elite squad assembled before him. "This is the final mission. We strike at the heart of their fleet. Failure is not an option. Prepare for departure." Minutes later, the team boarded the stealth transport ship hidden deep within the crystalline caverns. Engines hummed softly as the vessel ascended through hidden shafts, piercing the planet's crust and emerging into the war-torn skies above. Trion cruisers loomed in the distance, their weapons lighting the heavens with crimson streaks. Alpha piloted the ship through the chaos, weaving past debris and enemy fire. As they approached the Trion flagship, Lyra channeled her energy manipulation, cloaking the vessel in a faint shimmer of distortion. The hull of the massive dreadnought filled the viewport, its dark metal surface gleaming with menace. The transport latched onto an external maintenance port, and Alpha led the team inside. The corridors echoed with the hum of machinery, bathed in cold, sterile light. Each step brought them closer to the core disruptor's control chamber, and closer to the point of no return. Guards patrolled the passageways, but the Wax operatives moved swiftly and silently. Alpha dispatched 2 sentries with precise strikes, while Lyra manipulated energy fields to disable security systems. The mission was progressing smoothly until the alarms blared. "They've detected us," Alpha shouted. Trion soldiers converged from all directions, plasma weapons firing bursts of searing heat. The corridor became a battlefield of flashing energy and desperate combat. Alpha's energy blades clashed with Trion steel as Lyra unleashed waves of kinetic force, hurling attackers against the walls. The squad pushed forward, sustaining losses but refusing to yield. Finally, they reached the core disruptor chamber. The air crackled with raw power as the colossal device thrummed with lethal energy. Alpha rushed to the control console, but the interface was encrypted with Trion code. "Lyra, I need you." She pressed her hands to the console, her energy merging with the system's circuitry. The strain etched lines of pain across her face as she fought to override the controls. The disruptor's countdown began, 10 minutes until activation. Trion reinforcements burst into the chamber, led by a towering warrior clad in crimson armor. Vorek had escaped and now stood between them and salvation. "You're too late, Alpha. Your world will burn." Alpha charged forward, clashing with Vorek in a battle of strength and skill. Blades sparked as they collided, each strike fueled by desperation. Meanwhile, Lyra's energy manipulation intensified, her body trembling with the effort to halt the countdown. As the clock neared 0, Alpha delivered a final blow, driving his blade through Vorek's chest. The Trion staggered, eyes wide with disbelief, before collapsing in a heap of armor and blood. "Lyra, now!" Alpha shouted. With a cry of determination, Lyra unleashed a surge of energy, severing the disruptor's core systems. The countdown froze at mere seconds, but the backlash of power knocked her to the floor, unconscious. Alpha rushed to her side, cradling her in his arms. Her pulse was faint, her breathing shallow. Desperation clawed at his chest as the chamber trembled with secondary explosions. Hold on, Lyra. I'm getting you out of here. Carrying her, Alpha led the surviving operatives back through the chaos, fighting off the last remnants of Trion resistance. The transport ship awaited, and they escaped just as the dreadnought erupted in flames. As they soared through the void, leaving the destruction behind, Alpha gazed down at Lyra's motionless form. The mission had succeeded, but the cost was yet unknown. Outside the viewport, the distant stars seemed to whisper of battles yet to come, and the uncertain fate that awaited them all.